This microphone has really surprised me, and after testing it out for a couple of weeks or so, I genuinely believe that this is one of the best options for beginner or budget creators. This is the FIfine Am8. Coming in at around $60, this dynamic microphone can be connected via USB-C or XLR cables. With a headphone jack, RGB lighting, and dials for controlling gain and audio monitoring, the Am8 is a perfect choice for the creator on a budget. Before we get started, FIfine were kind enough to send out this microphone for me to check out and make a review and just tell you guys what I think about it, but no money's changed hands, they haven't paid me or anything, so all the opinions in this video are going to be my own. Anyway, if you're watching a video like this about the FIfine Am8, that tells me that you're either a beginner creator, a live streamer on a budget, or someone that wants to work from home and just improve your audio quality. And honestly, that's a great thing, because it tells me you're the type of person who knows how important good sounding audio can be, because whether you're making a YouTube video or doing a live stream or performing a presentation in front of your boss, if your audio sucks and they can't understand what you're trying to say, no one's going to take you seriously. Thankfully though, good sounding audio doesn't have to completely break the bank. You don't have to go out and spend hundreds of dollars on a microphone like this with an interface and an XLR setup and stuff like that. Instead, you've opted to look at like a USB microphone like the FIfine Am8. So when you buy the Am8, you obviously get the microphone itself as well as a 2-meter long USB-C cable, and finally you get a screw-on base so you can use it as a stand. And this is what it sounds like, which is honestly pretty good, especially when you're comparing it to like my expensive microphones like the Rode PodMic or even the Shure SM7B, which are both much more professional high-end microphones, whereas the Am8 is a little bit more beginner friendly, but it does only cost around $60 or so. However, unlike these much more expensive professional microphones, the Am8 has both USB-C connectivity as well as an XLR connector, which means it's perfect for beginners who just want a quick, easy, simple setup. They can just use the USB, plug it into the PC, laptop, even the phone or whatever. But if you want to take your audio a little bit more seriously, you can connect it to an interface or a mixer or something using the XLR and upgrade the audio quality, so a microphone like this one can actually end up growing as you do. Speaking of the interfaces and mixes though, the Am8 is currently connected to my Go XLR, and I've got a bunch of filters on there like compression, EQ, kind of noise gates and whatever and stuff, so this is the best case scenario of how this would sound, but I'm sure you're wondering what it would sound like if you just plugged it directly into your PC straight out of the box. So if you did buy an Am8 and took it straight out of the box and plugged it directly into your PC without adding any filters or compression or doing anything to it, this is the quality of audio you're going to get, which honestly doesn't sound the worst. Obviously adding filters and stuff to it can improve it, but for a basic setup, it's more than good enough. Also, you may have noticed that the lights and stuff has come on now, so when you plug it in via USB, you actually get a couple of extra features or things that you can do with this microphone rather than having to deal with it on the interface. So you obviously get a nice RGB light at the bottom, which you can change the color to match your setup, which is on this side, I believe. So if I keep pressing this, obviously, you can see that all the colors of the microphone keep changing. And then I've obviously got the gain dial on the back, which is changing the volume and stuff. But for me personally, I think the gain needs to almost be full because the preamps in this microphone aren't exactly the loudest, so you need it to be pretty loud as well as be relatively close to the microphone to be loud enough to be heard. And then finally, you've got a headphone volume, which means you could actually take your headphones with a 3.5mm jack, plug it into the bottom, and listen to yourself while you're speaking, so you're able to actually hear your PC as well as yourself and kind of just, make sure you sound okay. Other than the headphone jack and the 2 dials on the back of the microphone, we've also got this green button on top of it, which is obviously going to be our mute button, which is great whether you're in a Zoom meeting, a Discord call, or if you need to mute yourself when you're live streaming, you can just press this button. If you're like me though, and you obviously like moving your microphone around a lot, I'd definitely try and be careful though, because of touch sensitive mute button, so be careful not to accidentally knock it, because you'll end up talking to no one for 5 minutes before you realize. Another bonus to the Am8 is just how versatile it is for different types of content, because obviously you can connect it to your desktop PC and record either XLR or via USB-C, but this USB-C cable has a slight little trick up its sleeve, because obviously it's USB-C to USB-A, but it has this adapter which you can pull off, and now you've got a USB-C to USB-C cable, which means it's perfect to attach to phones, so you can record easily on the go or when you're traveling, or if you want to get high quality audio
for like TikTok live streams or even your Instagram Reels.
And as you can hear, the microphone actually sounds pretty decent, especially as I've got no effects or filters or done anything to this in post. It's just the raw microphone audio coming out of the USB-C into my phone, and this is what it sounds like, which is a great thing for people who are really on a budget or can't afford like a proper camera and just want to use your phone for your content, so you can make YouTube videos, TikToks, Reels, whatever, just using your phone and a cheap microphone setup like this. Speaking of budget microphone setups though, I get a lot of questions on my TikTok, which you should definitely be following, but people ask me whether they should get the FIfine Am8 or the FIfine K688 instead, because they're both similar prices, look the same, and I think they even have the same audio capsule. So we're going to do a test between these two microphones, and I'm going to throw in the SM7B as well, so they can hear what a high-end microphone sounds like compared to these two cheaper ones. Once you've met someone, you never really forget them. It just takes a while for your memories to return. Once you've met someone, you never really forget them. It just takes a while for your memories to return. Once you've met someone, you never really forget them. It just takes a while for your memories to return. Obviously, when you put all these microphones like next to each other, you can kind of hear that the SM7B is miles above the other two, but you'd expect that, seeing as though this microphone costs like 4 or 5 times whatever these two cost instead. And honestly, for something that costs less than $100, these two microphones hold up pretty well, especially if you're a beginner and you're not doing like high-end audio production like content. Then I'm sure these microphones will be more than fine. However, saying that, I'm still not a huge fan of the K688. It just doesn't sound great on my voice. It's kind of very top heavy. It has a lot of clarity, way too much clarity, so it picks up a lot of T and S sounds for me, as well as also struggling with plosives. So when you say P's, B's and stuff like that, it's like that boo, boo, boo sound, which never sounds great. So personally, I much prefer, surprisingly, the cheaper microphone, the Am8, over the slightly more expensive K688, even though this looks like the SM7B. I still think this one sounds better. Obviously, we've established that this microphone is more than good enough to start creating content, especially if you're someone that's on a budget. But if you're someone that also like wants to game or do things in the background while you're actually talking, let's do some audio tests to see how this microphone copes with like background rejection. So to start with, let's demonstrate the off-axis rejection, and that means anything that's picked up from like the sides of the microphone rather than in front of it, because this microphone is a cardioid dynamic microphone, which means that most of the audio is picked up directly in front of the capsule, and it's supposed to ignore most of the stuff that's around the sides. However, some cheaper microphones won't always do the best. So if you go to the side of your microphone here, how is the audio sounding? If you have an expensive microphone, usually it cuts out a lot of this sound, but cheaper ones aren't always the best at rejecting noise from like nearby. Then we're moving on to the plosive test, and that is usually how it copes with letters like P's and B's. And when you're like projecting and pushing air into the capsules, you'll often get that kind of sound, which doesn't sound very great. So when you're talking into this microphone, if you do pop pop popsicle, ice ice icicle, test test testing, 1 2 3, that's kind of how it sounds with like plosives. And cheaper microphones don't always sound the best, but obviously you're kind of paying more money to avoid those kind of issues. And last but definitely not least, for you gamers out there, we're going to be testing how it avoids and copes with like background keyboard sound, because if you're like creating content around gaming, whether you're live streaming or doing videos and let's plays and stuff like that, you don't want to be struggling with this type of noise in the background. And obviously, I've mentioned before, more expensive microphones cope with this a bit better, but this is what it sounds like if you're playing on a really loud keyboard. I'm currently using Blue Switch, like mechanical switches, which is just the loudest and probably the worst option for streaming, but this is what it sounds like trying to eject a keyboard while I'm talking into the microphone. Overall, this microphone has genuinely surprised me. When I was first sent this microphone to check out and stuff, I didn't expect much from it. It's a $60 microphone. I thought it wouldn't be great, but it's $60 and sounds this good, which is really surprising. And as you can hear, it would be great for anyone just starting in content creation, or if you're starting live streaming, or if you just want to upgrade your audio for things like, well, work. However, obviously, because it's a $60 microphone, that also means that it's not going to be perfect. There's going to be things wrong with it. It's going to have downsides and caveats and just stuff that could be better. For example, earlier in the video, I did say that it kind of is a quiet microphone. The preamps in it via USB, like connection and stuff, are kind of quiet, which isn't the end of the world. Obviously you can add like filters and effects and stuff to it to kind of boost that volume back up. It just takes a little bit extra effort and also a little bit of know-how and knowledge and stuff. Secondly, as with most cheaper microphones, you end up with like plosive issues with this. You're going to hear the air hitting the microphone, and usually it's more expensive ones that kind of avoid that a bit more, or you'd need a better windshield. But either way, also not the end of the world. All you have to do is to angle and position the microphone correctly so that it's not directly in front of you so the air hits it, like my hand, and you have it more off to one side so it points to the corner of your mouth, so when you're speaking the air goes directly past it. And same as all like cheaper microphones and stuff, it does suffer a little bit from like handling noise and things, which is fine if you aren't going to touch your microphone. But if you're like me and you like kind of move it around a lot, or you touch it like this, it's going to pick up your hands and things like that as well. So definitely be careful when you're handling and moving your microphone around. Try to avoid it as much as possible, otherwise your audience might not enjoy that. As I said though, most of these caveats are just like small issues that kind of come along with it being a budget microphone. It's not the end of the world. It's not going to like completely kill your like enthusiasm towards a microphone like this. And if you're a beginner, you're someone who just wants to improve your audio, this microphone is a great option, especially for how cheap it is. Anyway, hopefully this video was useful for you and it helped you decide whether this microphone is right for you. If it was, smash that like button down below. I'll really appreciate it. And also, if you want to improve the quality of your audio, like with filters and mic positioning and stuff like that, I'm going to leave a video here for you to check out. And I will see you all in the next one.